pulled out a handgun, told me to kill that person, the one kneeling in front of him, and I just shot him.
From Michael Apodaca, an American soldier who executed a high-ranking cartel lieutenant who was also a US informant, to Labarbi, who filmed his execution of 4 Zeta cartel hitmen, these 6 Americans didn't just participate in cartel violence. They documented, recorded, and broadcast it to the world. Edgar Jimenez Lugo. The first story in our examination begins with perhaps the most heartbreaking case of all, that of Edgar Jimenez Lugo, known by the chilling moniker El Ponchis. Born in San Diego, California, Edgar possessed something that should have been his greatest asset, American citizenship. Instead, it became merely a footnote in one of the most disturbing stories of child exploitation in modern cartel history. At the impossibly young age of 11, Edgar was forcibly recruited by the Beltran-Leyva drug cartel, a criminal organization known for its extraordinary brutality, even by cartel standards. The recruitment process wasn't gentle persuasion, it was systematic brainwashing combined with chemical dependency. Edgar claimed he was drugged and threatened with death if he did not comply with the cartel's orders, transforming a scared child into a compliant killer. The horror of Edgar's situation becomes even more apparent when we examine the recorded interrogation footage that surfaced after his arrest. In a grainy video that circulated online, we see a young boy, still very much a child despite the terrible things he'd done, describing his crimes with a matter-of-fact tone that chills the blood.
¿Cuántos días empezaste a ejecutar?
Los 11.
The systematic nature of Edgar's exploitation becomes even clearer as the interrogation continues.
Desde los 12 perteneces a la banda?
Sí,
¿Y si son del CPS?
sí es.
¿Qué tipo de arma tenían? ¿Qué tipo de armas tenían?
Cuerno de chivo. 45.
More disturbing still is his explanation of how he was controlled.
¿Tú eres el que sales en el video golpeando a un sujeto que está colgado en una casa?
Sí es.
¿Quién te daba órdenes de golpearlos, de ejecutar?
Negro.
The financial aspect of Edgar's exploitation adds another layer of tragedy to his story. He was paid approximately $200 per week for his services, a pittance that represents the cartel's view of human life, even that of their own operatives.
¿Cuánto te pagaban?
Los 500.
¿Semanales?
Sí.
¿Dólares o pesos?
Dólares y pesos.
¿Quién te los pagaba?
Ladilla.
The most notorious incident linked to Edgar's tragic career was the murder of 4 men whose headless bodies were found hanging from a bridge in Cuernavaca, Mexico in 2010.
¿Cuántos ejecutaste, dices?
4.
¿Cómo los ejecutaste? ¿Cómo los ejecutaste?
Los degollé.
This gruesome display was typical of cartel intimidation tactics, a public exhibition of power designed to instill fear in rivals and authorities alike. Edgar confessed to participating in these killings, stating that he acted under the influence of drugs and threats from the cartel. The brutality of these crimes, committed by someone who should have been worried about homework and video games rather than body disposal, is extremely unnerving. In 2011, at age 15, Edgar was convicted in a Mexican court and sentenced to 3 years in a juvenile detention center, the maximum penalty allowed for a minor in Mexico. The sentence, while legally appropriate for his age, seemed almost insignificant compared to the magnitude of his crimes. Edgar served his full 3-year sentence and was released in November 2013 at age 17. Following his release, Mexican authorities repatriated him to the United States, where he was sent to San Antonio, Texas, to stay with family in a support center. Although the image of headless bodies dangling from a bridge under his watch sent a message heard across Mexico, still, that shock pales in comparison to what came next, when another American didn't just kill cartel enemies. He filmed it, and it went viral. Edgar Valdez Villarreal. From the tragic exploitation of childhood innocence, we move to a story of calculated ambition and cold-blooded violence. Edgar Valdez Villarreal, known throughout the criminal underworld as La Barbie, represents a different type of American cartel killer, one who wasn't forced into violence but embraced it as a pathway to power and wealth. Born in Laredo, Texas, on August 11, 1973, Edgar Valdez seemed destined for a very different life than the one he ultimately chose.
To his good looks, his high school football coach nicknamed him La Barbie.
As a teenager, he was a popular high school football player at United High School, where his athletic prowess earned him local recognition. Valdez began dealing marijuana during his high school years, but a pivotal moment came when he accidentally killed a middle school counselor in a car accident, leading him to flee to Mexico to avoid legal consequences. In Mexico, he leveraged his bilingual skills and US connections to join the Beltran-Leyva cartel, a powerful drug trafficking organization that would become his vehicle for ascending to the highest levels of criminal leadership. leadership. His American background gave him a unique advantage, allowing him to facilitate cross-border drug smuggling operations. Valdez's rise within the cartel hierarchy was meteoric and merciless. He became a trusted lieutenant to Arturo Beltran Leyva, the cartel's leader, and eventually rose to lead the cartel's enforcement squad, known as Los Negros. This position put him at the center of some of the most violent episodes in Mexico's drug war, with Los Negros employing local gangs, such as MS-13 and the Mexican Mafia, to carry out murders, kidnappings, and other illegal activities. The scope of Valdez's criminal empire was staggering. The cartel reportedly imported around 40 tons of cocaine per month through the southern port of Zihuatanejo, with Valdez overseeing distribution routes. But it wasn't just the scale of his operations that made Valdez notorious. It was his willingness to document and broadcast his violence. One of the most chilling examples of Valdez's documented brutality involves the execution of 4 Zeta cartel hitmen in Acapulco in 2005. These hitmen were reportedly sent to kill Valdez, but were captured by his forces. What followed was a calculated display of power that would become one of the most notorious cartel videos ever produced. A viral video, allegedly orchestrated by Valdez, showed him interrogating the bound hitmen before their execution. The footage, which spread across the internet like wildfire, served multiple purposes for Valdez and his organization. This act was not only a demonstration of his ruthlessness, but also a strategic move to project power and intimidate rival cartels. Valdez's reign of terror came to an end on August 30th, 2010, when he was arrested by Mexican federal police in a rural house near Mexico City. In 2015, he was extradited to the United States, where he faced charges in the Northern District of Georgia. In 2018, he was sentenced to 49 years and 1 month in prison and ordered to forfeit $192 million. But while Barbie's murders were loud and theatrical, the next American killer operated silently, crossing state lines to erase targets. José Manuel Martínez. Our third case takes us into the shadowy world of contract killing that spans international borders. José Manuel Martínez, known by the terrifying alias El Mano Negra, the Black Hand, represents a different category of American cartel killer, the professional assassin who turned murder into a cold, calculated business spanning decades and multiple states. Born on June 13, 1962, Martínez was a Mexican-American who operated as a hitman for Mexican drug cartels. Unlike the cases we've examined so far, Martínez's story isn't one of childhood exploitation or rapid rise through cartel ranks. Instead, it's the methodical tale of a man who confessed to committing 36 murders across at least 12 US states over a span of more than 30 years. His activities were primarily tied to enforcing debts owed to Mexican drug cartels, making him essentially a traveling debt collector whose collection method was death. His victims were predominantly adult men, with one notable exception being an attempted murder of a 17-year-old boy. The geographic spread of his crimes, spanning at least 12 states, reveals a level of organization and mobility that speaks to sophisticated criminal networks operating across the United States. The end of Martínez's deadly career came in a way that perfectly illustrates the random nature of justice in the criminal world. He was arrested on May 17, 2013, in Alabama for the murder of Jose Ruiz, a friend of his daughter's boyfriend. This final killing wasn't a cartel contract or debt enforcement, it was personal, and it was this departure from his usual professional methodology that ultimately led to his downfall. During interrogation following his arrest, Martínez made the decision that would define the remainder of his life. He confessed to 36 killings, providing details that led to convictions in multiple states. The confession represented more than just an admission of guilt. It was a comprehensive catalogue of decades of violence spanning the American landscape. The legal consequences of Martínez's confession were swift and severe. In Alabama, he pled guilty to 1 count of murder for Jose Ruiz's death, receiving a 50-year sentence. But this was just the beginning of his legal reckoning. In California, he was convicted of 9 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole. In Florida, he received 2 consecutive life sentences for additional murder convictions. Martínez is currently serving 10 life sentences and is incarcerated at USP Victorville in California. While Martínez left a trail of 36 cartel-linked corpses, this next American Army officer planned a full-on raid and execution of rival cartel members. Kevin Cawley, the Soldiers' Failed Conspiracy. Our fourth case brings us into the dangerous intersection of military training and cartel ambition. Kevin Cawley, a former U.S. Army officer from Columbia, South Carolina, represents a different type of American involvement in cartel violence, one that was ultimately thwarted by law enforcement before it could reach its deadly conclusion. Kevin Cawley, who was 29 at the time of his arrest, had served in Afghanistan and was discharged from the Army shortly before his arrest. He was a former first lieutenant in the U.S. Army stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado, with military experience that made him became particularly attractive to criminal organizations seeking to enhance their operational capabilities. In January 2011, the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, launched a sting operation after 2 individuals in South Carolina informed undercover agents, posing as Los Zetas cartel members, about Corley's ability to supply military-grade weapons. This introduction would set in motion a chain of events that would expose the dangerous allure of cartel money for individuals with military training. Corley offered to provide not only weapons, but also tactical training and a murder-for-hire team. This wasn't just arms dealing, it was the potential militarization of cartel operations using American military expertise. Corley organized a team that included his cousin Jerome Corley, Samuel Walker, an active-duty Army sergeant, Shavar Davis, Marcus Mickle, Mario Corley, and Robert Corley. The specific plot that Corley organized was breathtaking in its audacity and violence. He planned to raid a ranch to recover 20 kilograms of cocaine and kill rival cartel members for a payment of $50,000 and 5 kilograms of cocaine. The end of Corley's criminal conspiracy came swiftly and violently. On March 24, 2012, federal agents arrested Corley, Samuel Walker, and Shavar Davis in Laredo, Texas, after they agreed on payment for the murder-for-hire scheme. However, the arrest didn't go smoothly. During the arrest, Jerome Corley, Kevin's cousin, was fatally shot by a DEA agent. The death of Jerome Corley during the arrest adds a tragic dimension to this case. While Jerome wasn't the architect of the conspiracy, like his cousin Kevin, his death represents the deadly consequences that can result when military-trained individuals become involved with cartels. The incident also highlights the dangerous nature of law enforcement operations targeting individuals with military training and access to weapons. The operation, conducted by the DEA, FBI, and U.S.